We have known for some time now that the Halo IP is not in the best place right now. When it comes to Halo Infinite, the recent reviews continue to be mixed. We've got player numbers decreasing. The recently released Forge mode did help the game gain a bit of momentum, but generally the peaks in average players are nowhere near what they used to be during launch period. And then the live service aspect of the multiplayer component was just woefully mishandled, with content updates that were too sparse and few and far between. The single player campaign, which has great potential for expansion, hasn't really gotten much love. And then recently we learned that Microsoft laid off roughly 10,000 employees, and those affected include Microsoft's game divisions like Bethesda and 343, with 343 being hit especially hard by these layoffs. One of the losses that really hurt was Joe Staten, who is departing 343 and rejoin Xbox's broader publishing division. He didn't just help Halo Infinite get to the finish line, he also previously worked on the very first Halo titles, mostly focusing on story and characters. Staten was made project lead of the game's campaign mode, Halo Infinite's campaign mode. His departure is an early indication that the campaign is not going to get much love, which we'll extrapolate on with the news today. Others sung praises about Staten, like Gene Park here, who said that he was the lead writer of the original Halo games under Bungie, which are all currently cherished. Beyond that, a number of former devs have spoken out, like Halo Infinite's former senior multiplayer designer Patrick Wen, who talked about how incompetent leadership up top is what led to Halo Infinite launching in such a piss-poor state and having such a piss-poor post-launch. Another former developer highlighted how Microsoft's business practices and policies slowly killed the thing he loved, Halo. And these are sentiments that mirror what Jason Schreier, investigative journalist, has heard from many other Halo developers. Things look so grim for Halo, and the speculation surrounding its potential doom were so rampant that 343 Industries had to put out the following statement that assures that the series will continue, stating here that Halo and Master Chief are here to stay. 343 Industries will continue to develop Halo now and in the future. As Jason Schreier put it, this was essentially their way of denying rumors suggesting that the company plans to outsource all Halo development. Though I'll be honest with you, part of me wishes that 343 would no longer helm Halo, that the IP would go to a studio that can do it more justice, and that 343 Industries would just redefine their identity by searching for a brand new IP that would be better suited for their talents. So all of this looks pretty bad, but based on a new report by Jason Schreier, turns out the state of Halo is a lot worse than I thought, to the point where they essentially have to reboot the whole franchise and shift to a brand new game engine. Right here, Jason Schreier tweeted a summary of his latest investigative report. Microsoft's 343 Industries will still make Halo games despite rumors to the contrary, but with mass layoffs, at least 95 people, an engine pivot to Unreal Engine, and a focus only on multiplayer for the near future, 343 is hitting the reset button. Here's the article in question, titled "Microsoft Studio Behind Halo Faces a Reboot on Years of Turmoil." Scrolling down, Bloomberg summarizes the sequence of events that led to Halo Infinite's downfall. In the months following launch, fans turned against the game, complaining about a thin roadmap and a slow rollout of features that had been expected on day one. At the same time, 343 was seemingly losing staff by the week and went through a major leadership change last fall that led some employees to brace for a reorganization, which is what's exactly transpiring right now. As for how Bloomberg knows that at least 95 people at the company have lost their jobs, that's because of a spreadsheet of affected employees that they reviewed. That was something that was essentially leaked to them by sources from within 343. They had to do their own digging because Microsoft wouldn't share specific numbers. All we knew back in January 18th was that 343 Industries was hit hard, but we didn't know exactly how hard until this latest investigative report that says that at least 95 people at the company have been let go, which for a development team that employs a few hundred, 95 people being let go is a significant chunk. And among them are dozens of veterans, including top directors and contractors upon which the studio heavily relies. And for those contractors, the temporary employees, they were just given a few days notice before their jobs were terminated. The contractors aspect in particular meant that 343 was constantly cycling through employees. There was just a high amount of turnover of employees that led to a lack of team cohesion, which just doesn't make for the most efficient way of developing a game. The less turnover of employees, the better, because everyone can be on the same page. This article also extrapolates on 343's assurance that Halo and Master Chief are here to stay, and that 343 will continue to develop Halo games. In public, Matt Booty, head of Microsoft's Xbox Game Studio, said in an interview that 343 will continue as the internal developer for Halo and as the home of Halo. But internally, what Matt Booty told staff is that even as they work with outside partners and outsourcing houses, they'll remain in charge. So 343 will remain at the driver's seat of the Halo IP, but it sounds like they're planning to be a lot more open to outside help, to outside partners and outsourcing houses getting involved. All major development teams on some level outsource work, but I'm wondering if that's going to be a more prominent aspect of 343's development pipeline in the future. But regardless, there's still plenty of concerns about the future of Halo, given that the studio is being hollowed out. It's lost tons of employees. There's a whole lot of reorganization happening, some big changes going on. How that will negatively or positively impact the future of 343 and its ability to make Halo games remains to be seen. A reorganization and overhaul can be a good thing. 343 has failed to deliver a game that Halo fans can be fully content with so many times now that maybe this kind of upending of the T-table, this kind of major reorganization of everything was long overdue. Maybe it can pave the road for a brighter future. Same thing goes for this pivot to a new game engine. The game engine used for Halo Infinite and previous Halo titles, the in-house engine, gave the studio a lot of trouble. The studio's own engine, known publicly as Slipspace, has been one of the biggest points of contention over the past 2 decades. Sounds like this is an engine that's been giving 343 trouble, not just throughout the development of Halo Infinite, but throughout the development of previous Halo entries as well. And this is in large part to do with the fact that the code for this engine is just super old, from the 1990s and early 2000s, making it buggy and difficult to use and work with, and has been the source of headaches for some developers on Halo Infinite. This very much reminds me of how the next Mass Effect entry is returning to Unreal Engine, because the Frostbite engine gave both Mass Effect Andromeda's development and Anthem's development so much trouble. The difficulty of working with those engines was a great contributor to why those games took so long to develop and why they still came out so broken and unfinished and unpolished. Same thing goes for CD Projekt and the Red Engine. The Red Engine is something that CD Projekt has decided to put aside in favor of Unreal Engine for future ventures like the Witcher remake, future Witcher entries, and potentially even the next Cyberpunk game, the Cyberpunk sequel, because of the disastrous launch of Cyberpunk 2077, which was in large part because of the issues that they were having developing both the next-gen Red Engine alongside Cyberpunk. Using an established and stable engine will just make the development pipeline significantly easier, and sure, they have to give a certain percentage of royalties to the Unreal Engine parent company Epic Games, but it's better than launching their games disastrously. This whole situation with the Slipspace engine giving Halo trouble and this being based on old code that just makes the engine hard to work with also kind of reminds me of the Creation engine. You can feel the age of that engine, and while the Creation engine has evolved over time, it's still built on a really rocky and old foundation, as in bugs from all the way back in Elder Scrolls Morrowind still show up in modern Bethesda games. Let's also not forget Fallout 76, which, yes, they did repurpose the Creation engine for that game to allow it to be this MMORPG kind of experience, or this share world experience, but I don't have to tell you how utterly messed up the technical state of the game was at launch, on top of the fact that it was devoid of a lot of substance. And even looking at Starfield, that game looks like it hasn't aged as well as other developers' open world RPG endeavors. As far as 343 and Halo are concerned, the buggy and dated nature of Slipspace is what's caused modes like Extraction and Assault, which are iconic for past Halo games, to be delayed and to still not be released. There were just issues that the engine was causing that has delayed those modes, and I imagine that this engine was a significant contributor to why it took so long to make Halo Infinite. It explains why they had to delay the game by an extra year in order to really polish it up. And even then, when the game did launch, it still felt like the game needed another extra year in the oven, especially the multiplayer component, which felt so empty and feature incomplete. And that likely has to do with the fact that so much of the development cycle of Halo Infinite was spent on hashing out the technical issues. And these issues with the Slipspace engine have been going on for years, to the point where over the past decade, management at 343 argued and debated switching to Unreal Engine. This wasn't a decision that they recently contemplated. Discussions about this have been going on for a while, and Halo Infinite's failure seemingly prompted them to finally go, alright, let's switch to Unreal Engine and get rid of Slipspace. More specifically, serious consideration for using Unreal Engine was something that happened late last year when Pierre Hintz took over. This was after the departure of studio head Bonnie Ross and engine lead David Berger. Now, Pierre Hintz is best known for leading the comeback of Halo Master Chief Collection, so the fact that he's now studio head is giving people some hope that maybe down the line Halo can recover, and the fact that Pierre Hintz is deciding that it's time to switch to Unreal Engine and to reorganize some things, maybe that is indication that 343 can overhaul itself into a studio that's capable of finally releasing a proper, a critically acclaimed, and long-lasting mainline Halo entry. And speaking of, a new entry is already in development. The new game is codenamed Tatanka, which 343 is developing alongside the Austin, Texas-based game studio Certain Affinity. Now here's a real kicker. This is a project that initially started off as a battle royale, which feels like such a misguided decision. Nobody plays Halo for battle royale. And don't get me wrong, maybe there is a version of a Halo battle royale out there that's really good, but that should come after the core elements of Halo. The stuff that makes Halo Halo is solidified first, and Halo Infinite unfortunately struggled at that. Features that were in past games since day one were completely absent in Infinite, and even to this day they're still absent. Some stuff finally came out, but it came out much later than it should have. And even then, there's still a lot of refinement that's left to do. A Halo Battle Royale just feels like such a trend-chasing decision that shouldn't have been top priority, that shouldn't have had manpower and resources wasted into it during the life cycle of Halo Infinite. But the good news is that what started off as a Battle Royale game will evolve into something different, probably into something grander, into a proper mainline Halo entry that hopefully will come feature complete and have all of the substance that makes Halo Halo. But, you know, only time will tell. Now, Bloomberg has heard from some folks within 343 that there is some concern about the switch to Unreal Engine, as it might have a negative impact on the way Halo games feel to play. One of the advantages of making your own engine is that you can tailor it to exactly what you require for a specific game that you're making. The switch to Unreal Engine means that they'll have to retrofit a lot of stuff to make sure that Halo still feels like Halo. But I feel like that's still a task that can be accomplished, and figuring that out will be easier than trying to deal with slip spaces, constant issues that come as a result of code that is decades old. Another unfortunate piece of information is that those who enjoyed Halo Infinite's campaign and were hoping for more are likely not going to get that, especially now, but we're never going to get that in the first place. Bloomberg details here that since Halo Infinite was released, fans had assumed that 343 was working on new content for the story, but that wasn't the case. The developers were making prototypes in the Unreal Engine and pitching ideas for new Halo games rather than working on new missions for Halo Infinite. Many of those developers were laid off this month, and the company isn't actively working on new story content. They were already working on a new game before they made sure that they did right by Halo Infinite. This is baffling to me. Seeing the Halo campaign and expanding upon it being such a low priority goes to highlight just so many misguided elements to the Halo Infinite development process and its post-launch. There are some observers and former 343 employees who believe that this reorganization was a long time coming, and it sounds like something that 343 desperately needs at this point. They can't continue the same course as they have been the last couple years, the last decade, with all of their mainline entries for Halo so far having been busts on some level. As for what long-term prospects look like for Halo Infinite, they once said that Halo Infinite would be the start of the next 10 years for Halo, but obviously those plans are going to be cut short. Recent moves point to a shorter-term vision, you don't say. Remember when Anthem was also supposed to be a 10-year-long endeavor? These corporations make all these claims about the long-term viability of their games before even making sure that they're released in an appropriate state, before making sure that they have built it up to a point where it's sustainable as a long-term live service. Now, anytime a corporation has the audacity to say that they're planning for a 10-year-long cycle for a new game release, that's a deep cause for concern for me nowadays. To me, that indicates a lack of focus for the present and them just daydreaming about the future, a future that can't happen without the present being solidified. One last thing to note before closing out the video is that Bloomberg's information is something that's been corroborated by other games journalists. Jez here, for example, from Windows Central tweeted that he had leaked Halo/Tatanka a year ago, but yeah, can corroborate all of this. I wanted to get more sources on Unreal before pulling the trigger again on that. Seems there was a big internal tug of war about whether or not to go all in on Unreal. The Unreal side won, and there's another report here from Windows Central that echoes a lot of the information shared by Bloomberg that you can also check out. But yeah, this is the state of Halo, ladies and gentlemen. As I said before, a lot worse than I thought. But that doesn't mean that there isn't hope for the future with this reorganization and overhaul happening, depending on how that's handled. The long-term future may potentially have a place for 343 and the Halo IP, but in this current situation, the Halo IP is in such a sad state that it really hurts. It hurts to see the mascot of an entire platform be reduced to this. You'd never expect Halo, of all IPs, to be at a point where 343 has to come out with a statement assuring that it's not dead and that the studio is still going to keep working on it. And a lot of this comes down to poor management and poor leadership, and hopefully Microsoft itself, the parent company, will get its shit together and will create an environment where 343 can do its best work, because in the current course that Halo's going on, it's hard to be optimistic about its future. For so long, for so many years, it's been one miss after another. And there's so much of that we can take before an IP kind of starts falling off when it comes to its relevancy. But I suppose only time will tell how things will play out for 343 and Halo. In the meantime, let me know in the comments below what your thoughts and opinions are on all of the information shared about 343 shifting to Unreal Engine and Halo getting rebooted and 343 as a whole being reorganized, and whether you think this can pave the road to a brighter future or whether you think this is cause for pessimism surrounding the IP and the studio. Share your thoughts below, and to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Young Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Young out.